Steve Hartman this morning has a story that could be the stuff of movies.
It's karaoke night inside the Sigma Kappa sorority house at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. And here, amongst all the dancing queens and their teens, we found one stationary sister in her 40s. Tiffany Eckert, America's most unlikely sorority sister, in so many more ways than one.
I still miss you every day.
Tiffany's husband, Andy Eckert, died in the Iraq War.
This is his wedding ring.
Years later, I did a story on their son, Miles, the little boy who found a $20 bill in a Cracker Barrel parking lot and then gave it away to an airman he saw in the restaurant.
Because he was a soldier, and soldiers remind me of my dad.
Miles' tribute to his father deeply touched the nation. But there was another story here, one that has gone untold till now.
Yeah. Just a few hours before my husband was killed, he called home from Iraq, and he said no matter how long it took, I had to get an education, and he made me promise that I would. And then he told me, I love you more than anything in this world. I'll call you tomorrow.
It was the last promise she ever made to him, and the only one she hadn't kept. Tiffany says she barely made it through high school and now had little kids to raise on her own. College was out of the question. But those kids grew up. So 3 years ago, she decided to not only enroll, but to immerse herself in the full college experience.
You can't focus on the negative because you'll always be in the pit. It's easier to claw your way up when you're reaching for the sunshine. That's how you get out of the hole.
You know, she's helped me so much and she's inspired me a lot, and I know she's inspired a lot of the other girls in the chapter.
There's definitely not one person she hasn't made an impact on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Including, Tiffany hopes, the most important person.
I go back to that last phone call, and I think he's really, really proud of me.
She graduates next month.
Love you.
Promise kept.
To Steve Hartman with a story about the power of a promise.
You can't hear him over the crowd, and that may be a good thing, as Auburn University coach Bruce Pearl sneers and snarls his way through yet another basketball game.
You see him on the court being tough and stuff to all the players, but there's a whole totally different side of Bruce outside of basketball, which is a nice, loving, and caring person.
Auburn freshman Sam Cunningham's unique perspective comes from his greatest struggle. When he was 12, Sam was diagnosed with leukemia, and not long after, someone asked Coach Pearl to record a video for him.
You're gonna beat this, son. Cancer? Pick the wrong hombre. Pick the wrong dude to mess with, okay?
It was just real funny to me. Cancer picked the wrong hombre. It picked the wrong dude to mess with. That quote is what I kept with me when I got in my darkest days in the hospital and stuff.
Through all his complications,
You're gonna beat this, son.
through his relapse,
Pick the wrong hombre.
through the days that felt like they would be his last,
Pick the wrong dude to mess with,
Sam kept watching that video over and over.
okay?
Eventually, Coach Pearl delivered the same lines in person,
Pick the wrong dude.
and they became friends. And then one day, Bruce gave him another, even more inspiring message.
Tell you what, you're gonna get better. You're gonna come to Auburn, and you're gonna be my assistant. And he takes me at my word.
He believed it.
He did, and he is.
Today, he is the team manager, and so happy to be here. In fact, Sam says Coach Pearl's encouragement may have saved his life.
That truly healed me. I didn't think I would really get to this point from all the complications I had, so that was pretty amazing. I'm just a miracle to be here right now.
This month, college coaches across the country will be praying for a national championship. But here at Auburn, this coach will be asking for something far more consequential.
In my prayers, it's, God, don't let this thing relapse. Take me. Let Sam live.
Basketball seasons come and go, but great coaching lasts forever.
If there really is such a thing as a storybook life, Joe and Barbara Saltzman seem to have it. In the early 1960s, they lived and loved and worked and played in Southern California. But the real magic happened when their sons arrived, Michael and then David.
Growing up, they were just so darn cute. And they always got us aggravated and annoyed. And in the end, they were just such delights. They made our lives so wonderful.
Life, of course, wasn't always perfect. It never is. But for Barbara and her boys, it was close enough. Dad taught journalism at USC. Mom was an LA Times editor. And the kids did okay, too. After graduating Yale, Michael Saltzman made a name for himself in the TV business, writing and producing shows like Murphy Brown and later Mad Men. Little brother David went to Yale as well, but instead of TV, he wanted to write children's books. His senior project, in fact, was this: The Jester Has Lost His Jingle. 64 vividly drawn pages about a very happy court jester in a very sad kingdom. The story turns when the jester makes a little girl in a hospital bed laugh out loud.
What'd you guys think when you first saw the Jester book?
Well, I was amazed at the quality of the illustrations. I didn't think he was very gifted as an artist. I never knew that. And suddenly I'm looking at this book and the illustrations are incredible. And then the message, I mean, he's the only person in the world that would rhyme sense of humor with "I have a tumor." I mean, who rhymes like that? Who thinks like that?
At the time, David had no idea that he'd soon have a hospital bed of his own.
How did you find out he was sick?
He didn't get sick until his senior year. He called me on October 10th and he said, "I have good news for you. I'm going to go to the doctor and get this cough cleared up." And then he called from the doctor's office and he said, "The doctor is saying something about Hodgkin's. I don't know what he's talking about." And that night, Joe and I were on the plane to New York.
Hodgkin's lymphoma, a kind of cancer, was destroying David's lungs, and the usual treatments just weren't working. He finished The Jester, and in May of 1989 graduated Yale with honors. But within weeks, his health and his dreams faded. David Saltzman died in March 1990, just before his 23rd birthday.
David wanted to personally share The Jester Has Lost His Jingle with children and read it to children. But when he no longer could, sorry, I vowed that I would make it happen.
You made him a promise?
I did. And his father, Joe, also made him that promise. And his brother, Michael, and that we would see that the book would be published as he envisioned it, and that it would be given free to every child in the country with cancer.
It wasn't an easy promise to keep. Every year, more than 15,000 children are diagnosed with cancer. But before the Saltzmans could even think about giving the book to kids in places like this, they had to find someone willing to publish it.
We took it to all the publishing houses, and we were told it was too long, rhyme doesn't sell anymore, it's too expensive to make. And my mother felt all of that was wrong.
Undaunted, Barbara convinced Joe to use their house as collateral, and the Saltzmans published The Jester themselves.
She's like a benevolent Terminator. She will not be stopped. If she doesn't get the answer she wants from you, she'll keep asking until you give her the answer she wants.
So off they went, our fearless two.
In the 20 years since, Barbara has taken The Jester to every hospital she could find, to every children's cancer ward, and to every bedside. Today, it's a bestseller with more than 250,000 copies in circulation. But you can't measure the book's value in numbers alone.
Better than medicine.
Mark Caton is a pediatric surgeon at New Jersey's Goryeb Children's Hospital. He was also David Saltzman's Yale classmate.
When I've seen this help a lot of people and put a smile on their face, at times when you wouldn't predict people should be smiling.
Whenever I feel like crying, I smile hard and...
For whatever life they have on this planet, that book makes them laugh. Every night they go to bed laughing. Maybe they don't make it, but the time they have on Earth, they've had a wonderful experience, and that's what this is all about.
And he walked his funny walk, and he danced his funny dance.
What do you think he'd think of Mom up there wiggling?
He would say, you know, she's always been nuts.
Whatever it takes to fulfill that promise, right?
Yeah, basically, you know, short of hooking on Hollywood Boulevard.
How long do you think she's going to continue doing this?
What's the average lifespan of a woman in today's society? Because it's going about to the day before she drops. I think she'll be continuing it.
The end.
Storybooks can be magic, but few things are as powerful as a mother's love.
By any logical standard, last spring, 28-year-old Eugene Yoon made the craziest decision of his life.
I remember kind of just like looking up at the sky and being like, God, are you sure about this? Because I'm pretty happy right now.
Did it feel like that, like a calling?
It felt like a calling, but I tried to reject it for about 2 months because it was just too outlandish.
What Eugene felt called to do was one really big random act of kindness. He didn't know who he was supposed to help or how. All he knew was that he had to help someone, and it had to be life-altering. And that's when a video came across his Facebook page.
It was a video of a guy he never met named Arthur Renowitsky, a paraplegic in a t-shirt with bold letters of bold defiance. After being mugged, shot, and paralyzed 8 years ago, Arthur vowed that he would walk again someday. And when Eugene heard about that, he called Arthur immediately.
He wasn't going to give up until I was walking again.
To walk again?
To walk again.
And you don't have a medical degree?
I have a film degree.
Which makes you wonder then, how were you going to make him walk again?
This is the part I had no idea at the time.
Eventually, though, he learned about this exoskeleton device that can help some people walk again. Unfortunately, it costs about $80,000. So, to pay for it, Eugene quit his job at a research company in Northern California to hike.
Here we go.
From the California-Mexico border to Canada.
We're going.
Along the way, he posted videos of the adventure and asked people to donate on social media. Until roundabout mid-Washington state,
We did it!
when Eugene learned
We did it!
that he had reached his fundraising goal.
You're gonna walk!
And again, all this to help a total stranger.
Yes!
To quit his job, to go into debt from doing this, to help me get back on my feet. You don't meet people like that every day.
Eugene Yoon felt called to make a difference in someone's life. But when he heeded that call, he had no idea what a difference he'd make. Until proof rounded the corner. This is the first time Eugene got to see Arthur walk.
Oh my God. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, brother. I call him my brother now. We are brothers. I'm just very thankful to have a friend like him. I wouldn't be here, man, if it wasn't for you.
Makes you wonder, that little voice Eugene heard, was that ever about helping someone with a hardship? Or was it about helping two someones with a friendship?
For years after the war ended, a group of Vietnam veterans waged their longest battle. That fight, on behalf of a fallen comrade, has even inspired a movie. David Martin tells their story.
You've probably never heard of William Pitsenbarger. He died more than half a century ago at the age of 21, saving Fred Navarro's life, among others.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for Pittsburgh, there ain't no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be here.
In 1966, Navarro was a soldier in Charlie Company, which suffered 80% casualties, 80%, in a Viet Cong ambush. This sounds like absolute hell.
It was people moaning, praying, calling for their mother.
Be advised, we're in a tight one down here. Multiple casualties.
As depicted in a new movie, The Last Full Measure, William Pitzenbarger, an Air Force pararescue man, descended into that hell.
It's all true, and most of it happened.
This project started over 15 years ago.
Todd Robinson wrote, directed, and produced The Last Full Measure.
It's really not about William Pitzenbarger, it's about the effect that he had on the living.
I've had PTSD since that day. I've had some very bad times, but I always think of Pitzenbarger.
Pitzenbarger was lowered through the jungle canopy to treat and evacuate the wounded.
As he was coming down through the trees, I just happened to be the one that met him. And we became friends real fast.
When you saw him coming down from that helicopter, what did you think?
I thought he was crazy.
Navarro was wounded, and in the movie, Pitzenbarger drags 2 dead soldiers on top of him as a shield.
He not only pulled those 2 dead Americans on top of me, he took his armored vest off of himself and put it on my chest.
He gave you his flak jacket.
Mm-hmm. Now that's crazy. He got that on for a purpose.
Yeah.
But he gave it to me.
Pitzenbarger put 9 soldiers on litters so they could be hoisted out of hell. But when his crew signaled it was time for him to come up, he refused.
He didn't want to leave us. In fact, at one point, I asked him, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Because you're here."
Todd Robinson was just a kid when this happened. He learned about it 30 years later from the survivors of the ambush.
It was just phenomenal to sit with battle-hardened men who would weep openly in Beverly Hills restaurants or on military bases or wherever we might find them, because this was such a powerful experience for them.
You made a promise to these guys.
Yeah.
What was the promise?
The promise was that I'd get this story told on behalf of them. It was as simple as that. It wasn't hard to make that commitment to them, although it didn't occur to me it was going to take 20 years.
Pararescue jumper.
Working on an indie budget, he assembled A-list actors to play the veterans. Peter Fonda, in what turned out to be his last movie, Ed Harris, William Hurt, and Samuel L. Jackson, among others. How did you afford all those big names?
Well, nobody worked for their price.
They were all old enough to know what Vietnam had done to this country and to the soldiers who fought there.
To a man, they wanted to pay tribute to those sacrifices that people that they knew made on behalf of the rest of us.
No one was more moved at the first screening of the movie than Peter Fonda.
He couldn't speak. He literally couldn't talk to me. He was just, the tears were running down his face.
Pitzenbarger was killed fighting off the Viet Cong. The survivors recommended him for the Medal of Honor, but it was downgraded to the Air Force Cross. But the story of William Pitzenbarger would not die. What kept it alive?
The veterans kept it alive. With the advent of the internet, a miracle happened. And the miracle was that the wives of a lot of these veterans started to connect through email. And they started to realize from one another that Pitts never got the medal.
Some of the paperwork had been lost.
Whit Peters was Secretary of the Air Force in 1999.
Some people thought it had been hidden by the Army.
Why would it have been hidden by the Army?
Well, I think there was a belief that this Operation Abilene, which is where Pitzenbarger was killed, was an embarrassment to the Army because they sent in this Charlie company to go out and find the enemy. And what they found was an ambush. And about 80% of that unit was killed or wounded in action.
Peters knew injustice when he saw it and set out to fix it.
There was some real time pressure because Pitzenbarger's father was dying of cancer at the time. So the hope was, if we were going to do this, we would get it done while his father was still alive.
Scott, I have cancer.
In the movie, Pitzenbarger's father is played by Christopher Plummer.
Dying isn't harder than losing a child, I promise you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
There wasn't enough time left to schedule the traditional White House Medal of Honor ceremony.
So I was lucky enough to have the honor fall to me.
In December of 2000, the ceremony was held at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, with survivors and their families flown in from all over the world.
After the battle, we never saw each other again till then.
The place was full to overflowing with people whose lives Pitzenbarger had touched.
There are about 300 people there that would not be alive as of 2000 had their parents not been saved by Pitzenbarger.
By then, Pitzenbarger's father was in a wheelchair and had to be helped onto the stage.
Distinguished visitors, ladies and gentlemen, the loss of his son probably was the worst thing that ever happened to him. And so, while he was proud that his son had performed courageously in battle, it was still the worst thing that ever happened to him.
Now, we have with us today some of the veterans of Operation Abilene.
When Robinson reenacted the ceremony for the last full measure, he naturally brought in all the stars for the crowd scene.
It's a little pebble in a pond.
But he also brought in all the survivors of the battle. There's Fred Navarro, front row, aisle seat.
I award the Medal of Honor.
The speech the actor Linus Roach gave was the same speech Secretary Peters gave.
Bill possessed the ultimate courage. Anyone who has been touched or moved in
The reenactment didn't need any more emotion than the original.
Would you also stand?
I wish he was alive and got the Medal of Honor and that I could meet him.
If you could meet him today, what would you say to him?
Thank you, Pitts. Thank you for saving my life.
During this month, when we focus on Black history, Chip Reed's story about the fate of a Washington, D.C. cemetery is all the more disturbing. His is the tale of righting a wrong.
Virginia State Senator Richard Stewart and his wife Lisa were exploring their new farm on the Potomac River when they saw something in the water that brought tears to her eyes and made him feel ill.
Lisa and I looked at each other and both of us said, "Is that a headstone?" And then we looked and we saw another and another and another.
What did you feel at that moment?
Horrible. It was just a horrible feeling to think that this person's headstone was here on our shoreline and not where it belonged, with her body, where her family could grieve and mourn and remember her life.
And that was 4 years ago. And since that time, we've been working to get them back where they belong.
They consulted with historians who followed the trail of names to the old Columbian Harmony Cemetery in Washington, D.C. For about 100 years, starting in the late 1850s, it was the final resting place for 37,000 Black residents of Washington, including many of its most prominent citizens, such as Elizabeth Keckley, seamstress and confidant of First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln, Sergeant Major Christian Fleetwood, recipient of the Medal of Honor during the Civil War, and Mary Ann Shadd, anti-slavery activist and America's first Black female publisher. So how did all these headstones from a cemetery 60 miles upriver in Washington, D.C. end up here? Well, about 60 years ago, that cemetery was sold, and all those headstones were either sold or given away as scrap. A previous owner here bought truckloads of them to shore up this riverbank. Today, there's a metro station where the headstones once stood. The only recognition, a plaque that reads, "Many distinguished Black citizens, including Civil War veterans, were buried in this cemetery. These bodies now rest in the new National Harmony Memorial Park in Maryland." But most were reburied without headstones, so the precise locations of the bodies are lost forever.
It's an ugly thing, and it's ugly because cemeteries are a mark of humanity.
Professor Michael Blakey, director of the Institute for Historical Biology at William & Mary, says there's a long history in America of what he calls dehumanization of black cemeteries.
It's casual dehumanization at this point. It's a kind of disregard.
It has a lot in common, he says, with the death of George Floyd.
The murder of George Floyd, as I see it, by Officer Chauvin, was casual. Chauvin clearly did not see Mr. Floyd as a real, complete human being.
Yeah, this is a beauty.
A Virginia nonprofit, the History, Arts, and Science Action Network, has taken on the job of recovering as many of the headstones as possible. But it is a monumental task. So far, only 55 have been recovered, with thousands more believed to be buried in the muck. Virginia's governor, Democrat Ralph Northam, put $5 million in his budget for the recovery effort and is working closely with his longtime Republican friend, Senator Stewart.
Republican senator, Democratic governor, what's the message here?
Chip, there are some things that transcend politics, and this is one.
This wouldn't have happened to a white cemetery in Virginia, and the fact that it happened in an African-American cemetery is wrong, and we need to make it right.
That's music to the ears of William Hart, whose great-grandfather, William Henry Harrison Hart, was a civil rights champion and legendary law professor at Howard University, who was buried at Harmony.
Has his stone been found in the river?
No, it has not. I think that I would be overjoyed if I found a headstone.
Hart admits he has every reason to be bitter about what happened. But he says that's just not how he feels.
I am overwhelmed that other people care so deeply about this issue. Even though this was a tragedy, the fact that people care today brings me great joy.
You've no doubt heard the old adage, one good turn deserves another. Steve Hartman has proof.
At the bottom of a hole in Chesterfield County, Virginia, utility worker Calvin Gaudette is fixing a leaky water main. But no gusher down here compares to the fountain of good deeds he delivers up there. Whether it's buying coffee for the next car,
Take care of the people that behind me.
or groceries for a random shopper,
I'm gonna pay for this.
Calvin gives away about half his income to total strangers.
I'm gonna fill your truck up for you.
In return, he may get a thank you.
Why's that?
At best. But he remains undaunted.
You don't never know. You could do something for somebody or talk to someone and you can change the whole situation.
He says it happened once.
You can come around, thank you.
A few months ago, Calvin was in this Burger King drive-thru when he happened to look in his rearview mirror and saw a woman who just seemed sad. So Calvin did what Calvin does, bought her meal. Only this time, his random act of kindness would not soon be forgotten.
Somebody to do something that nice for you on that very moment when I thought nothing could make me happy again. It just touched my heart. This is Andy.
Denise Walters had just lost her husband of 41 years.
I just wish he was still here.
And says Calvin's kindness was exactly what she needed at exactly the right time. In fact, it had such a profound effect, she chased him down, told his boss, and got him recognized before the County Board of Supervisors.
He saw that I was upset and showed compassion to a complete stranger.
How you doing?
Since then, they have stayed in touch and grown their circle.
Nice to meet you, I'm Chris.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
Told us you may have lost your husband, but you gained a family.
He's just an amazing man. Just an amazing man.
He's also her new role model.
But I want you to have this.
Denise is now doing the same thing.
He has shown me the way.
So you feel like you're on a mission now?
Oh, absolutely. If he can do this, I can do this.
And maybe
Can I have a hug?
we can do this.
Go spread that joy somewhere, okay? Thank you.
What could be more picture perfect than a town in Vermont in the fall? How about 251 towns in Vermont in the fall? Connor Knighton tells us all about it by the numbers.
Vermont is known as the Green Mountain State. But come autumn, its mountain slopes are anything but green. As the leaves turn red and yellow and orange, picturesque towns turn into tourist hotspots.
Number 53, Waterbury, Vermont.
All right. Loretta Cruz and Aaron Agnew aren't your typical leaf peepers. They've come to the town of Waterbury on their honeymoon. Sort of. When these Vermonters got married back in 2020, the pandemic forced them to cancel the trip they'd originally planned and stay closer to home instead.
We had to think about, well, what are we going to do for a honeymoon? So
go to every town in Vermont was the
Go to
answer?
every town in Vermont, that's right. And that extends the honeymoon. It's more than just one trip, too.
At this rate, the honeymoon period could last for well over a decade. They've been taking trips whenever they can get away, taking tips from the many members of the 251 Club.
Our first town was Brookfield. We wanted to see the floating bridge.
We'll be in Randolph.
The 251 Club is a group dedicated to exploring all of Vermont's towns and cities.
Every town that has a brewery we want to go to.
At their annual meeting, they gather together to talk about their journeys.
are we doing it together? Are there rules? Tim is very competitive, so he feels there should be rules.
It's got to be rules.
Lynn and I.
But there aren't any rules.
I've heard it said that we are a lawless organization, right? That kind of the only rule is that you have to love Vermont and want to explore it.
Mike Leonard is on the board of the 251 Club, which has maintained its name even though Vermont now technically has 252 towns. Like he said, the rules are loose. When he was 20, he hit the towns on a road trip with two of his pals.
And so I took it on as a challenge to really explore what it does mean to be a Vermonter.
Some of the towns, only had 5 or 6 people in them.
Esther Farnsworth didn't start her quest until she was 90.
There are a lot of places in Vermont that I haven't seen. So I just decided I'd go. And
now 93, Farnsworth made it through the list in 2.5 years.
And I know the best places in Vermont to get ice cream. Ben & Jerry's isn't the only one, there are some others too.
The 251 Club was first proposed in a 1954 issue of Vermont Life magazine. Poet Arthur Peach wrote that Vermont, from the beginning, has been a state of towns, and in them only can the real Vermont be found and seen. In the town of Thetford, you can see the Vermontosaurus. In the town of Glover, you'll find the unattended Museum of Everyday Life, devoted to ordinary objects. Just turn the lights off when you leave. In a single afternoon, you can travel from Peru to Jamaica to Athens. But as every traveler knows, it's not always about the destination.
Driving around, talking, it's just been, it's definitely been really good, father-daughter bonding time, especially, during the pandemic.
Whenever you complete your quest, there's no grand prize. The club doesn't make you prove anything. But
what happens is your heart opens up when you finish, because you get to see how much commitment is in each of those tiny little towns that are out-of-the-way places, but people love them.
That's Vermont's Congressman Peter Welch, a proud 251er. That deep sense of pride and sense of place is perhaps best summed up in the Vermont State Song,
these green hills and
which Esther Farnsworth insisted I could not leave the state without hearing.
They say home is where the heart is. These green mountains are my home.
I love that. That's a great set of it.
In this season of Christmas, a question. When was the last time you even thought about the power of kindness? Our cover story is reported by Lee Cowan.
The wonderful thing about It's a Wonderful Life is those final few minutes when George Bailey after a lifetime of doling out kindness, finally gets it all back in full measure.
To my big brother George, the richest man in town.
Sure, it's a Hollywood ending. Kindness rarely parades into your living room, after all. But it can appear in places you don't really expect.
All the trees were here, and there were some in the back.
For Tracy Bild, it was the parking lot of this Dairy Queen,
From what I understand,
some 30 years ago tonight.
My mom loves Christmas, and we were very much about Christmas, but we just didn't have any money for a Christmas tree. That was just the reality.
Yes, on that Christmas Eve, here in Urbana, Ohio, there was no tree, no presents, no money, except for the few coins she and her brother scrounged out of the couch cushions.
How much did you come up with?
I mean, it wasn't much. It was literally quarters and dimes. It was probably
pocket
under
change.
$1.
Nonetheless, they took their meager offering to the only tree lot in town, at that Dairy Queen, run by a round-faced man nicknamed Jug. Jug had been a Marine and an Ohio State trooper, and although pretty stern-faced in those old photos, on that night, Jug seemed to Tracy as soft as new-fallen snow.
You know, the thought of my children
Guys, go this way.
walking a couple miles in hopes of finding on Christmas Eve a Christmas tree to take home to their mom, I can imagine that must have touched his heart.
Touched indeed. Jug not only gave them a tree, he gave them his biggest and best. No questions asked.
It was about the magic of Christmas, of human kindness and somebody doing something for us that we did not expect someone to do.
Not expecting it is what makes kindness so special. And yet, as unexpected as it is, we still crave kindness, which may very well be because research shows being kind is a natural part of the human condition.
We're genetically wired to be kind. It's actually our deepest identity.
David Hamilton is a former organic chemist from Scotland.
It's when we're not being kind that it's unhealthy. It's when we're not being kind that we feel separate and we feel disconnected and we feel unhappy and something's out of sorts. And the heart eases off some of its pressure.
He's made a career lecturing and writing about how kindness isn't just something we do or something we feel. It's something our bodies actually need.
Being kind, because it makes you feel warm and connected, it actually changes the internal biochemistry of your body.
There's a physical effect.
A physical effect. You know, it's the opposite of stress.
Really, there's a hormone that's produced every time we do something kind. It's called oxytocin, what Hamilton likes to call the kindness hormone.
One of the things that it does is it softens the walls of the arteries. You know, it's funny, it's like a mirror. As you become softer towards people, so you soften on the inside, it actually softens the walls of the arteries. And when that happens, the heart doesn't have to push as hard to get the blood through, so blood pressure drops.
And he says you can get that healthy effect by doing nothing more than offering a smile.
So it doesn't have to be some grand gesture, right?
No, it's the consistency of doing small things that matter more than doing one grand gesture.
Elizabeth Higgins Clark and her fiance, Lauren Pomerantz, found that out.
Remember when I gave blood?
Oh, yeah.
When they set out to do one small act of kindness every day for an entire year.
What was the reaction?
Well, a lot of our friends made fun of us.
Correct. A lot of our friends made fun of us.
A lot of our friends made fun of us.
Hoping to inspire others, they posted their efforts on social media under the hashtag #KeepAmericaKind. They filled expired parking meters with coins. They sent pizzas to sheriff's departments.
Add a little bit here, add a little bit here.
And baked cookies for strangers.
Big for construction workers.
Construction workers, crossing guards.
UPS drivers.
Anyone we could think of who we thought would need a cookie.
When they ran out of their own ideas, they'd seek out nonprofits like Big Sunday in Los Angeles.
Did we do shampoo yet?
No.
On the day we visited, they were making care packages for the homeless. What they found, after 365 days of doing small acts like this, is that kindness was like a muscle. If it went unused, it would atrophy, and the urge to be kind would go away.
Once you keep going and keep going and keep going, you build it up and it changes.
It's like a workout.
Yeah, it is.
The more you do it, the more comfortable you are, the better you are at it.
which would seem to suggest the earlier you start being kind, the better.
My job is to figure out a way to go into a school and make kindness cool. Everyone say, be brave. Everyone say, be kind. Everybody say, change the world.
Brian Williams is the founder of Think Kindness, a program he developed specifically for schools to teach kids that no kind act is too small.
I want to make sure I get to know you guys. It's super important that we start kids early to train them saying, look, every single day you have an opportunity to make a difference in the world, but it's up to you as whether you'll take action.
At Mount Rose Elementary in Reno, Nevada.
Point to the other person next to you. Say, you can change the world. Point to the person behind you. Say, you can change the world.
He was recruiting what he calls kindness ninjas, who do good deeds like writing a teacher, "You're awesome, keep it up," and then delivering that kind message without anyone ever noticing. Or at least that's the idea.
When we see those acts of kindness, it reinforces that belief, like our world is good, our world is awesome, people are awesome, and we can all band together and make a difference.
He works with older students too, like the ones at nearby B.D. Billinghurst Middle School, where messages of kindness and respect are everywhere you turn.
I'm not sure how big kindness is going to be.
There's a whole kindness crew who makes them. They also organize school-wide kindness campaigns that students say have changed the school's culture.
Kids have not been bullying people, and then they haven't been like saying mean comments and stuff.
It really is that simple, just to be kind?
It's not something that you're just gonna go into classrooms one month and then it's gonna be like, oh, the whole school's kind. It's gonna have to take convincing for those kids who don't want to do it.
I think we need some up in here.
Nobody needs to convince Tracy Bild about the lasting power of kindness. Almost any Christmas tree reminds her of Jug.
Okay.
She still comes to visit him, even though he's long gone now. His real name was Gerald Woodruff, by the way. She kept in touch with Jug's kids, too.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Oh, my God, I miss you. I know.
Imagine all the Christmases that have come and gone.
I just want to thank you guys, though, for your dad.
And yet, here they were, decades later, talking about an act of kindness their dad had done that still resonates.
And it amazes you what one small act of kindness, how it grows.
Oh, well, look at
And you never know. I mean, he never did stuff for a thank you. He just saw a need, and he loved people and just went right in and helped. Yeah.
Which gets us back to George Bailey. That Hollywood ending did prove one thing. Kindness begets kindness. It's contagious in all the right ways.
Attaboy, Clarence.
I think we think about doing kind things a lot, but think, I don't need to do that. It's stupid, or why would I do that? I think we just need to do it. Stop thinking about things and just do it.